Here today we have the infamous Sega Genesis 32X, which is considered to be one of the greatest flops in gaming. It was only around for a year, just under a year. It was a response to the competition from Atari's 32-bit Jaguar, Nintendo's, quote, CD drive, which Sony was supposed to build, then Nintendo changed it to Panasonic, and it never pulled through. And also to the 3DO. Originally the idea came from Sega of Japan, kind of like a Sega Neptune thing, for those of you who know what that is. And Sega of Japan handed it to Sega of America to deal with it. Sega of America decided it wouldn't be a standalone, but it would be another add-on to the Genesis. They thought that people wouldn't want to buy a completely new system. So they developed the add-on, and it was released in November of 1994 in America, December of 1994 in Japan, and January of 1995 in Europe. That Christmas, Sega shipped about 500,000 units, and in many areas the units sold out. Except there was one problem. There were no games for the unit when it came out, and people had to wait because the system was so rushed. And it was due to this waiting that people returned their units. So let's take a look at the console, which really is not a console, it's just an add-on. But anyway, it's pretty cool. You got your 32X cartridge slot, got the name on the front, some weird ports that are for ventilation. I'm really not quite sure what they're for. I mean, this thing doesn't have a fan. On the back you have your audio video out, audio video in, and your power adapter. Yes, this thing requires another power adapter. In order to play a Sega Genesis 32X CD, 3 power adapters, 3 giant blocks. Now there was an odd thing about this, is that you had to plug your Genesis into your AV in, and then from your AV in, you had that transferred over to the AV out, and that went to an RF cable, or initially an AV cable. Now that's just weird. Now there's a separate cable for the Sega Genesis Model 1 since the output is different, and those are quite rare to find, and I would like to find one eventually. Now the way you put this thing in is kind of odd. There's a little spacer you have to do first, which goes on like this, and connects in there. Now if you're doing a Sega Genesis Model 1, the next thing you have to do is add these metal clips to reduce electromagnetic interference from the 32X, which would apparently damage your Model 1. Now that's just odd. So the next thing you did was you got your Genesis, and according to the manual, you, quote, firmly push it in. And there you have your Sega Genesis 32X. You can also add the CD add-on onto the side here. My friend's currently borrowing it, so I don't have that right now. What you do is you take your audio video cable, plug one in here, and you plug the other one in to your 32X. So you've got this cable that just seems to bulge out at the back. And then your AV out is now from your 32X. It's just kind of weird. Now, the games look similar to the Genesis, except, you know, a little bit different. Like here I have Doom. It says 32X and Doom, and there's some little ridges down here on the bottom. Under standard warnings on the back. It was built similar to the Genesis, just slightly different. Also, your 32X can play your Genesis game, so you don't have to remove it to play Genesis. So, you put your 32X game in there. And there you go, you've got yourself Sega Genesis 32X. It's just a really weird console. So how about some specs? It has two 32-bit processors, each running at 23 megahertz, and your sound ran to your Genesis, and your Genesis ran the sound with its Motorola 6800 processor, and its sound processor as well, to run your PCM sound in your 32X, which sounds overly complicated. And this thing could run 32,768 colors. That's quite a few colors. This thing comes with 4 megabytes of built-in RAM, and also it uses the Genesis RAM, which adds up to a slightly larger number. Now, this thing actually has a dual-channel sound if you know how to hook it up. If you get your AV cables with your red, white, and yellow, then you can get your dual-channel sound. Otherwise, if you use the RF cable, you get mono, which is not good. Now, this is quite a different system. I mean, it's just a mushroom you stick on top of your Genesis. I like it, but they only made 39 games, and it was only out for a year, so they didn't really have any time to get good games. But in that time, they did get a few good ones, like Doom is good, the music isn't, but the gameplay is great. They made Knuckles Chaotix, and there was another game called Metalhead. I'm sure there's some other good games, but those are probably the best for the 32X. So I do have Knuckles Chaotix and Doom, and I think I'll show you a little bit of gameplay from them. So with your 32X, you use your standard Genesis controller, which I really like these Genesis controllers. They're built really sturdy. You know, ABC, start, your D-pad, which is big. I mean, this controller just feels solid. You listen to that. That is a good sound on a controller. And it's shaped really well for your hands too. It's just perfect shape, even for big hands like mine. Overall, the Sega 32X was a failure. Since it only lasted a year, and it came out so late, it was rushed, and then it was yet another add-on for the Sega Genesis, which people really didn't want. It was a failure. Although it did sell well initially, there were quite a few returns on the system because of the lack of games for it. Which is unfortunate. I like this system, it's really cool. It's got some really good graphics for the year. It really is 3D, and it looks really good, especially with Doom, which you just saw a minute ago, and Knuckles Chaotix, which also looks good. So here we have the infamous Sega 32X.